Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Warlords of Draenor dungeon guide. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the new 5-man dungeons that was released with Warlords of Draenor, and this is the Iron Docks. Now, in total, this dungeon has got 4 bosses, and if you'd like to walk to the dungeon instead of using the dungeon finder, then it is located in Gorgrond, which is on Draenor. If you'd like to skip to any specific bosses of this fight, then please do use the annotations that are on screen now. Or alternatively, if you'd like to view a written version of this guide, then please do head on over to flaskup.com or click on the link in the video description below. The first boss in this dungeon goes by the name of Fleshrender Nok'gar. However, this is kind of a 2-in-1 fight, as you're also going to have to take on his mount that goes by the name of Dreadfang. Now you will be fighting Dreadfang at the start of this fight, and as soon as you've dealt like half of his health to him, Nok'gar is going to jump off him and join the fight. For the first part of this fight, you want to make sure you're focusing all of your damage onto Dreadfang, mainly due to his Bloodletting Howl ability. Now this will cause him to buff his allies with 50% additional physical damage for 8 seconds. So obviously you want him to not be around so that he can't cast this buff. The simplest way of dealing with this is just killing off Dreadfang before you kill off Nok'gar. It's quite simple really. Now while Dreadfang is alive, he's also going to cast an ability called Savage Mauling, which will cause him to leap to a random player in your party and deal damage to them every second for 6 seconds. There's no way to kind of stop him from dealing this damage other than using complete damage mitigation such as Ice Block, so you're going to have to use a personal cooldown if Dreadfang does leap to you, and your healer's simply going to have to spot heal you through the damage. Finally, whilst Dreadfang is alive, you're also going to have to deal with his Shredding Swipes ability, and this is going to cause him to lunge forward and deal damage to anyone that is within his lunging line, so to speak. Now because of this, you want to try and stay spread out as much as you can, so that multiple people aren't going to get hit by this one ability, and this is going to help reduce the overall damage that is going out on your party. Now when Nok'gar enters the battle and jumps off of Dreadfang, he's going to begin casting an ability called Barbed Arrow Barrage, and this will cause arrows to fall down upon the party at a frequent rate, dealing damage to players. Now unfortunately, this damage is non-avoidable, so your healers are simply going to need to heal through this damage that players are going to be taking from this ability every 3 seconds. Now because of the damage from this ability, you're going to need to be aware of Nok'gar's second ability, which is called Burning Arrows. Now this will cause him to fire burning arrows at the ground underneath players and spawn lovely little patches of fire, so don't stand in the fire mechanics do apply here. You just simply need to move away from the fire when it does spawn, and if you keep on moving around while burning arrows is being cast, they will land at your targeted location and not on you, so you are able to kind of dodge them as they are being fired at you. And the final ability of Nok'gar's that you're going to have to deal with is Reckless Provocation. Now when he casts this ability, it's very obvious because he puts a red sphere around him, and if you attack him during this time, he's going to simply fear you. Now, this doesn't sound too bad, but if you are standing near the fire from his Burning Arrows ability, and he puts the Reckless Provocation on him, and you get feared, then there is a chance you could be feared into the fire, and then the damage could lead to you dying, pretty much in a nutshell. So stop attacking when he's got the sphere on him, don't try and push the DPS, because it's not always needed. The second encounter in this dungeon is another council style fight, and they go by the name of the Grimrail Enforcers. Now there's 3 of them in total, and each of them has their own health pool, and also their own different sets of abilities that we're now going to go over. First of all, we're going to take a look at Ariok, and because of her, throughout this fight you'll probably find your group changing targets on quite a regular basis, due to her Sanguine Sphere ability. Now what this will do is it will place a red orb of healing around another member of the council. I believe it's the one that is the lowest health currently, and if you deal 150,000 damage to the council member with the orb/shield on them, then they're going to explode and place an ability called Abrupt Restoration, which is a healing ability, onto all of the nearby allies. Now this will cause them to heal for a total of 30% of their maximum health. So ideally you want to try and not let this go off, but if it does, it's simply just going to lengthen the fight duration. Now Ariok is also going to cast an ability called Blood Bolt, which is going to cast at her current target, and this ability unfortunately can't be interrupted, so your healer is simply going to need to heal through the damage that this is going to deal. Finally, she's also going to place a debuff on players called Tainted Blood, which is going to deal damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds in total. Again, this ability can't be removed from players, so you simply need to heal through the damage that it's going to deal. Throughout the fight, the next council member, who goes by the name of Makog, is going to be targeting random locations in this combat area and casting his Flaming Slash ability. This will cause him to lunge forward to his targeted location and deal a moderate amount of fire damage to anyone that he happens to run through. Now, because of this, you want to try and stay as spread out as you possibly can, so that every time he does cast this ability, it's going to be hitting as few people as possible. He's also going to cast an ability called Lava Sweep, which causes him to summon a wall of lava and send it out in waves at players. Now, the lava waves are randomly directed, so you simply need to move away from them as they come towards you in order to not take damage. Think back to Ragnaros in Firelands, it's a little bit like Sulfurous Smash on there. And the final council member you're going to need to deal with goes by the name of Nisa Nox. Throughout the fight, she's going to periodically cast an ability called Gunshot, which will be fired at a random player in the group and can't be interrupted. This is just adding on to the additional damage that players are going to be taking, so your healers simply need to heal through this. She's also going to cast an ability called Malfunctioning Jumper Cables, which is going to target 3 random players in the group. This is damage that you need to prepare for by having people topped up, as it can't be avoided in any way. Again, spreading out here does help because I believe the jumper cables can jump to other players if you are too close to each other. Nisa is also going to periodically pick a player and fire a set of ogre traps around them, which you can see as they are literally just they look like bear traps and they form in a circle around a player. Now, you are able to move out of these traps in between them without taking any damage, but if you do happen to walk into a trap, then you're going to set it off and gain a Shredded Tendons debuff. And this is going to cause you to take damage every second for 7 seconds, and it will also cause you to have a movement slow applied. Now, Nisa's final ability is called Bomb Squad, and this is going to form a bomb squad which will run towards a random player in the party. And when the bomb squad reaches an enemy, he's going to cast an ability called Big Boom, and this does exactly what it says. It will cause the bomb squad to explode and deal a moderate amount of fire damage to players that are within a 7-yard radius. Again, because of this, it helps to be spread out, and if you do see the bomb squad running towards you, try and make sure that other people are aware of it and moving away from you, or you try and move away from them so that people aren't going to be taking additional damage. The third and penultimate boss in this dungeon goes by the name of Oshir, and he's going to be swiping and shearing and shredding at your party in order to try and stop you progressing through the rest of the dungeon. Now, throughout the fight, Oshir is going to randomly pin someone to the ground and begin to inflict high amounts of physical damage to them with his ability Time to Feed. Now, while casting this ability on someone, your healer is going to have to spot heal that person, and they're going to have to use cooldowns if needed, and the only way to break him out of this feeding frenzy is to damage him for 8% of his maximum health. Once this has been dealt to him, he'll break out of it, and he'll go back to slapping your tank around a little bit. Now, as well as pinning people down, Oshir is also going to try and run through your party in order to mow players down with his Primal Assault ability. And this causes him to walk in a fixed line while dealing very high amounts of damage to anyone that gets in the way. As you probably see in the video in the background, he casts this ability, and I think 3 people in the party just get flat out taken out. It's also worth noting that the hitbox for this ability seems a lot bigger than the actual animation is, so you need to make sure you are moving a safe distance away from him when he does cast Primal Assault. And finally, throughout the fight, he's going to cast an ability called Breakout, which is going to cause him to jump to one of the cages that are around the room and unlock it. Now, this can cause him to unlock either Ravenous Wolves or Rylak Sky Terrors, and if he unlocks the Ravenous Wolves, then they're going to fixate on random people in the party and just deal damage to them. You simply need to kill these off when they spawn, and on the normal mode version of this fight, you can group up in order to AoE them down and kill them faster. However, on the heroic mode version of this fight, you're going to want to spread out because the wolves will cast an ability called Strength of the Pack, which means they will have their damage increased by 25% for each other nearby wolf. So normal mode, stack up, AoE them down. Heroic mode, spread out and single target down the wolves as fast as you can. Oshir can also release Rylak Sky Terrors, which have one ability that you need to be aware of, and this is called Acid Spit. Now, this will cause them to spit acid at random players in the party, and this will form a lovely green pool on the ground, which is going to persist for 30 seconds, and will deal moderate damage to anyone who happens to stand in it. Standard do not stand in this mechanics apply here, and you want to move away from it as fast as you possibly can, and then kill the Sky Terrors as and when they do spawn. All in all, this fight's pretty simple. It's just a matter of making sure you're dealing enough damage to Oshir to break him out of the feeding frenzy and controlling the ads. And the fourth and final boss in this dungeon goes by the name of Skulloc. However, you're not only going to be fighting Skulloc, who is kind of like a giant colossal anyway, you're also going to have to take on his companions, who go by the name of Karamar and Zogosh. Now, at the start of the fight, Zogosh is going to jump into his little cannon, and you're not going to be able to attack him until later on, so you don't really need to worry about damaging him. However, you do need to be aware of his rapid fire ability, which is going to cause him to fixate and fire at a random player in the party, dealing fire damage to them every half a second. Now, this kind of works like aim on the Paragons of the Galaxy in the sense that anyone between the cannon and the player that's being fixated on will take damage. So you need to make sure that if you do get fixated on, you're moving away from the party so that it's only you taking the damage and your healer just simply needs to heal you. At this point in the fight, your tank is going to be tanking Karamar and Skulloc at the same time. When the fight starts, you want to focus all of your damage onto Karamar in order to kill him off and burn him down as fast as possible. And while you're doing this, he's going to be throwing several abilities at you that you're going to need to deal with. The first ability is called Berserker Leap, which will cause him to jump to random targets, and because this deals AoE damage when he lands on the target, you want to make sure that your party is spread out as much as they can be. Spreading out is also going to help with the next ability he casts, which is called Shattering Blade, and this will cause him to skim his blade across the ground, which creates a nice kind of shiny sparkly effect, and this is kind of AoE damage in the direction the blade goes. So spreading out will reduce the amount of damage that multiple people are going to take at any one time. And his final ability is called Blade Storm, which, you know, if you're a warrior, this means anything in melee range is going to get destroyed basically. So when he casts Blade Storm, all you simply need to do is move away from his melee range, otherwise you're going to be taking 80% of his weapon damage and effectively dying. Now, once Karamar has been killed, Skulloc is then going to begin knocking back players and firing his cannon at you. Now, this cycle of abilities, the knockback and then the fire cannon, is going to repeat itself until Skulloc has been defeated. So first of all, he's going to knock everyone back to the other side of the boat that you're currently on with his backdraft ability, and this is going to deal a moderate amount of damage and also stun you when you land for around 2 seconds. Now, as soon as you're out of the stun, you're going to want to move to the crates to the right hand side of you and hide behind them due to his cannon barrage ability. This is basically going to cover the boat in cannons, and if you're in the wrong place or not hiding behind a crate, you're going to get killed, no questions asked. Now once he's stopped casting cannon barrage, you then want to advance further up the boat, which is to the crates on the left hand side, and hide behind them until he's finished casting cannon barrage again. You want to rinse and repeat this until you can make it back to Skulloc, and as soon as you get to him and start attacking him, this will cause him to break this cycle of abilities, so to speak, and then he will just fight you normally and punch your tank a little bit. It's worth noting that if you do have movement speed increasing abilities such as Dash or Savage Roar, then you can get to Skulloc faster, maybe after the first cannon barrage, and end this mini phase faster than you could if you didn't have movement speed increases. Finally, once Skulloc is almost dead, Zogosh is going to jump out of his cannon and begin to attack your party. Your tank just simply needs to get aggro on him, and your DPS need to kill him off as and when they feel like it. He doesn't gain any new abilities when he jumps out of the cannon, so you can kill him before or after you've decided to finish off Skulloc. So that's going to do it for this Warlords of Draenor dungeon guide. Hopefully it helps you clear this dungeon without any issues. And if you would like to view a written version of this guide, then there is a link available in the video description below, or you can head on over to flaskup.com and then just hover over the little Dungeon Guides tab at the top of the page. Additionally, if you are interested in our future Warlords of Draenor dungeon and raiding guides, then please do feel free to subscribe to the channel for all of our upcoming updates. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.